Hey guys, welcome to chessroots.com. Today I'm gonna show you a game which was played between Magnus Carlsen and Boris Gelfand in Tal Memorial 2011. Here white is Carlsen and black is Gelfand. He played d4, d5, c4, c6. The game began with Slav defense, knight f3, knight f6, e3. Carlsen is playing little passively, could have played knight c3, bishop f5, but knight e3 is also a line, bishop f5. In this Slav defense, we don't often see black playing a move bishop f5. This bishop usually won't get developed in this line. The problem is after bishop f5, we will get a move like queen b3. The queen b3 works only when there is knight c3, because the pawn on d5 will be attacked more than once, more than 3 times. So this queen on d8 cannot support that both b7 and d5 pawn. So white didn't play knight c3, so black can play bishop f5. But there are small technical problems even in bishop f5 in this position. Let us see what is that. Knight c3, e6. Now there is no retreating square for this bishop. If you play a move like knight h5, this bishop should be left alone like that, or by playing bishop g6, something like that, or even bishop h4, bishop g6, and bishop h5 and bishop g6. This was what it played in the game. And let us consider a move like h6 in this position. For example, we will see h6, trying to keep this bishop alive and not giving white a pair bishop advantage so easily. If h6, queen b3, queen b6, c into d5. If c into d5, white simply can take knight into d5. If queen into b3, knight into f6 check and loses a pawn. G into f6 is forced, or e into f6 also can be played, but there is a straight passed pawn in the d file. So there is no queen b6. No c into d5. So instead of c into d5, we can capture queen into b3, a into b3, knight into d5. Now here is an interesting move, e4. The idea of e4 is simply let us see why e4 is played. After knight into c3, now you cannot take b into c3 because bishop into e4 loses the pawn. So e into f5 is forced. Now knight d5. Black is threatening to play knight b4. So bishop d2. This position is better for white. Even white pawn structure is very bad, b3, b2, d4, f5. White have a very good chance of attacking black center pawn, and the pawn on f5 looks very bad, but this pawn is very strong, not allowing black to play e6 or g6, and this bishop on f8 is struck. If black somehow managed to play e6 or g6 without any problem, still there are some problems like open files. Both rooks don't get an open file in this position, whereas white have a very small weakness, that is b3, d4. This d4 pawn cannot be captured if you want to play bishop c3. This d4 pawn can never be challenged or captured. If you want to play a move like c5, white can simply take and open this diagonal on c3. So the structural weakness of white will not be much considered in this position. Now he's having a free position in this particular variation. So after bishop d2, after qb3, now let us see queen c7 will directly lose with c into d5, c into d5, knight into d5. Knight into d5, queen into d5 loses the pawn. So in this position, black didn't play h6 and he simply played e6. Now white played knight h4. He don't want this bishop to be kept on this diagonal, doesn't want to exchange with bishop on d3, so simply wants to take with knight into f5. So bishop g6, which was played in the game, which is slightly plus equal for white without any attack. So let us see a variation called bishop g4. Now after bishop g4, white can simply play queen b3, queen b6, h3, bishop h5, g4, bishop g6, knight into g6, h into g6, g5. In view of knight into g4 is threatening, and you can prevent even by playing bishop g2. But g5, the idea behind g5 is to, if once this knight came to h5, there is no other good square for this knight to retrieve. So this knight have to come to d7, c5. Now there is no good square for these both knights on b8 and d7. Queen into b3, a into b3, e5, trying to open this knight and also trying to attack the c5 pawn. In this position, white will simply play f4. The idea of f4 is simple, either to fix this pawn on e5 or you need to capture. This position is clearly better for white. The pieces of all the pieces of black are really passive. Only the rook on h8 can have an open file, but that h8 rook doesn't really do anything. But white here can have a plan like playing bishop d3, maybe ah4, h5, or even b4, b5 is also a threat. So here black simply played after bishop g6, knight into g6, h into g6. Now we are back into our original position after knight g6, h g6, bishop d3, knight b d7, castle shot, bishop d6, h3. h3 is forced, or else bishop into h2 will be a big problem. d into c4, bishop into c4, knight b6, bishop b3, e5. Here gelfand played very good move e5. Simply wants to control the center, open up the center by playing e5, and the main idea of e5 is he wants to take with e into d4, or most like e into d4. Then this knight on d5 will be very strong. So queen c2, queen e7. After playing a move like bishop back or queen d6 something, or e4 maybe. Bishop d2. White is just waiting for black to commit castling on queen side or king side. Long castles. Now black has just committed a long castle and he just want to attack on white king by playing bishop b8, maybe queen d6, or sometimes maybe e4, g5, g4. Let us see. So here white immediately reacted for long castle and he played d5. After d5, e4. Now he can play more like queen e5 and checkmate, trying to checkmate white king. D into c6, queen e5, f4 is forced, or else queen h2 is not. The moves like g3 will not be very good for white. We have rook into h3. After king g2, rook double, rook h1, queen h5, loses the game. So e into f3, rook into f3. Here black played a good move, a only good move to equalize or get any advantage in this position. Means any complications to get in this position. He played knight g4, simply threatening. If h into g4, he'll play rook h1. King into h1 is not possible because of queen h2 checkmate. So c into b7, king b8, h into g4, rook h1 check, king f2, rook into a1, knight e2. Now the position is very interesting. All the white pieces are literally in the game, and black is just having an exchange up. For exchange up, he is having two pawns, but these pawns are very bad. Even the pawns on b7 can g4, and king is also very good to support e3. So this is a very interesting complicated position where we need lots of calculation and everything to analyze this type of positions. And here Carlsen played knight e2 within just 1 minute. Now the idea is simple. He wants to prevent the g3 check or h2 entry of bishop c3 and bishop d4, supporting this e3, and even maybe closing the diagonal by playing knight f4. There are many ways to play in this position. So he played bishop c5, bishop c3, queen e7. Now the idea of queen e7 is to play queen h4. Looks very bad for white, and here Carlsen played a pawn sacrifice by playing g5. Now there is no queen h4 immediately, so if he captured this pawn on g5 threatening queen h4 check, he can simply play queen e4, protecting this h4 square. And also now the queen is very active in the center. Rook d1, rook d1, knight g3, bishop d6, queen e2, rook g1, queen d3, bishop c7, knight e4, rook a f1, king e2, rook into f3, g into f3, f5, gf6, g into f6, bishop into f6, queen h7. Now the idea of f5 is simply he wants to attack on the king. So here white played a very good move, queen b5, just giving a square to run for the king. A move like king d3 and also threatening queen e8, and queen d8 is a checkmate. So rook g2 check, king d3, queen d7, queen into d7, knight into d7. Now here white played excellent move to finish off the things. Hope you can see this move, bishop d5. The main idea of this move is simple. He don't want to give the b7 pawn, and the other idea is king is stuck to prevent this b7 pawn, and there is no entry for this king, and this b7 pawn suddenly looks very dangerous. Now if you try to transpose this knight to somewhere like a6, then it will be a checkmate. So bishop e5, threatening bishop into e5. If bishop into e5, I can simply take knight into e5 and knight into f3. So here he played one more good move, f4. If you capture bishop into f6, this knight into f6 comes into action, and now there is a threat of bishop into g2. So there is no way that he can take bishop into f6. So he played bishop c7. Now white played a good move and he resigned. He played bishop c6. Here black simply resigned in view of knight c5 and knight a6. This is a very good game played by Magnus Carlsen. Hope you enjoy the game. Please don't forget to subscribe, leave comments. See you in the next video. Bye.